Hello everyone, this is Armstrong Williams on the right side. Don't curse, speak English. Virtuous society. I dare you to listen. Hey, turn it up. Hey. Get on the right side. Elevate your mind. I'm Armstrong Williams on the right side.
Yo, man, it's your boy K.O. And you're tuned into the most conservative of our brothers.
The Armstrong Williams Show. Please give me a break. Grow up. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of the Armstrong Williams Show. We're at the Republican National Convention in Tampa, Florida. Cool breezes and guests that you've not met before. You know, I want to talk to Michael Judith. So, Michael, tell them about your engineering background. Tell us, audience, about your background.
Well, I went to school at the United States Merchant Marine Academy and graduated a marine engineer, and from there I went into what used to be the American Merchant Marine. Obviously that's changed over the years. We don't have the same status in the world as a shipping nation as we do now. I graduated in marine engineering with a minor in nuclear reactor theory, and at the time I worked for a company right out of school, American President Companies. They were the premier American shipping company. They're now actually owned, they still exist under the same name, but owned by a Singapore company, Neptune Overseas.
We were having an interesting conversation, but before I even get into that, this country has such a dearth of engineers, and America is really falling behind in the math and the sciences, and I know high schools and on the collegiate level, it certainly has gotten their attention. What can America do to compete in those areas, to compete with the rest of the world? What is missing?
Well, for starters, not all engineering are the same. I mean, there's a lot of controversy even now that in China there's more engineers than there is population in the United States. So they say they're out engineering us. But it takes a lot more to be an engineer. You need to have creativity as well. You need to match the two. That's one of the things that made Steve Jobs such a brilliant entrepreneur. He didn't just have the ability to understand what the product was, but he would create a product that was special, unique, and served a niche that didn't necessarily exist before. So from the standpoint of just when you say there's a lot of engineers, yeah, there's a lot of engineers.
No. We lack engineers.
Oh, we lack
America.
Well,
how do we get more?
How do we get more?
In this country, in the United States?
Yeah, well, you encourage...
in other words, what am I asking you? How do we encourage more young people? One of the arguments in American education today for kids who graduate from college, especially in today's economy, why they cannot find jobs, is because people are saying they're in the wrong disciplines. They go the soft way.
Right, we all want STEM.
Yeah.
And trust me, I'm right there with you. In fact, both my kids went that route, and I couldn't be more proud of them. And the opportunities that they're falling into because of what's going on in the labs today in America, it's just mind-boggling that people can't even begin to understand. Okay, to answer your question, how do you get more STEM? One of the things, at least this is my personal opinion and observations, is that in America we're so influenced by the media, especially the TV, or now we've got the permutation of the internet, where you can go on, you can look at YouTube or whatever. Okay, making geek and making engineering and making being really smart, fun and interesting goes a long way. And there's actually a show on TV now called The Big Bang Theory that has done a lot to get kids interested, thinking it's sexy. In fact, I was just with a young person a couple of nights ago who I would have never thought was interested in engineering. It was a young lady, and that was like one of her favorite shows, and she was proud that she was becoming geeky and everything, making it interesting, exciting, and relevant to be a geek is part of the whole thing. It's how we're perceived amongst our peers. And for so many years, that wasn't a fun thing. Now that it seems like all the people that are in the engineering disciplines are doing so well because they're literally taking the opportunity to change the world, because we really are in one of the most fascinating, most transitional time periods in history, going down to the microscopic level, which takes a very sophisticated level of understanding and engineering. And so getting kids interested in that, through those types of things, when it's in the media, in the face. A lot of people make fun about kids that spend too much time in front of video games. But I got to tell you, there's a lot of power that comes out of the right kind of video games. A lot of power. A lot of disciplines that are taught. And you want to jump in?
No, please go ahead. Logan is the co-host. We got to hear from our guest. That's a very important point you make, because you know why? I actually thought about it with video games. I said there's a strong education. Those kids are really sophisticated in areas, because, you know, when I have technical issues in my studio, and sometimes I get these kids that come in, so I understand this because I had to do this on my Xbox and with the video games. I learned this, and I'm just amazed. Talk about that.
Okay, here's a perfect example. You know, I personally am not a video game person. Well, actually, I am, but in a different sense. But let's take, there's a game out there, I'm going to use an example because I know my daughter likes it, and I know a lot of young people in their 30s like it and everything. It's called Zelda. So it's this little game, and if you've ever sat down and watched young people play that game, or War of Worldcraft, or the Microsoft games or whatever, if you sit in a room, when they first engage the game, one of the things you have to understand is they don't have any instructions. So the first thing they have to do is figure out what they have to do. Now, that's mind-boggling if you think about it. It's very complex. All of a sudden, they're in this virtual world, and they're trying to live. They're trying to survive. And so they've got all these different tasks to go through. I've got two little nephews, and they get on these games, and they go like a bat out of hell playing these games, and they're just working through these worlds, and they see what the next challenge is, and immediately they figure out what it is they're supposed to do next. And if they don't, they bump up against something. It creates a way of thinking. It teaches them to learn. Learning to learn, and that's a very, very powerful influence on them. Not only that, if they really delve into it, I was with a young man up at Tufts last weekend, and he just got back from interning with Microsoft. He's actually going to go to work for them, and his passion is video games, and he's got his own video game he's been designing. Now, the applications of that. Over here in Central Florida, we have a simulation and training discipline in the research park that is really second to none, I think, in the country right now. And what they're doing is they're taking all these video games to the next level from the standpoint of whether it's medical or whether or not it's getting involved in how a warfighter would fight. And they've got a bunch of cognitive scientists that actually help design game simulations, things that can help our warfighters in advance of ever being really engaged. So all of this stuff plays on one another. And when you know, the fact that, you know, these kids are playing these games, so many parents say, don't play so many video games. Well, that's, you know, that's yesterday's world. In today's world, it's just the cusp. It's the basic principles. Using a computer, you know, what we think of when we pick up a computer and we're working with the computer, we're sitting there trying to work through the things. Most people are just, you know, whether or not they can get the word processors going through. Kids today, that's secondary to them. They're working around it. They're trying to figure out what the computer can do for them, and what they can, how they can take it to the next level. So getting this technology in a cost-effective, low way into the school systems ubiquitously is very, very important. And some of the most shameful things I've heard of lately is how some of these inner-city schools don't even have the funding, have the bandwidth to get on the Internet. I mean, that is just like so outrageously inappropriate in a country like ours, when we're sitting here helping wire the rest of the world and keep the rest of the world safe, that some of our inner city schools aren't totally wired with classrooms that can, you know, reach out to the rest of the world.
How do parents use the video games and when kids are young and take math and science and make it so exciting and so interesting to their child that they just want to pursue it, increase their brain power all the way through grade school, where they really become a force in this area, in this discipline?
Wow. Every child's different.
Well, let's just...
there's no magic bullet.
We're not looking for a magic bullet. We just want your opinion.
Make it fun for them. Don't make it wrong.
But how does one make it fun?
Kids.
Okay, talk about yours. Yeah.
Our experiences are a good example. Because my wife, she graduated high school. She's a creative genius, but when it gets into the maths and sciences and things, she's not. Those aren't her fortes per se.
But you're saying Steve Jobs had both.
Well, no, Steve Jobs was more creative.
He
had Wozniak with him.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, he was the engineer. Okay. He's the engineer.
Right.
But anyway, But my wife homeschooled our children until they were in 8th grade. And after 8th grade, from homeschooling, they went into the International Baccalaureate program on their own. Okay, how did we get them from homeschooling into a program like that? It was teaching the kids how to learn. And what she did is she always fed their passions. And that's what you've got to do. You can't, if a kid's into something, you've got to feed into their passions. You can't make them feel bad about it. You've got to make them feel good about it. And you've got to get them interested. They've got to be self-motivated. I can't motivate you to do anything any more than you can motivate me. You just got to set the right example, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to that. But you've got to give them the opportunity, because there are so many children out there that want the opportunity that can't get the opportunity. And so when you have a whole public school system where they don't even have access, in the world that we live in today, when we have so much excesses, I mean, it's criminal.
You know, Michael Judith is our guest. He's a resident in Orlando, Florida, as an engineer. And he's involved in a lot of philanthropic work around the country. Now, when we come back, because everyone is talking about Apple and Samsung, Logan, our co-host, who's not accustomed not saying anything on the air, but there's a time and place for everything. So Logan is going to engage Michael Judith in a very fascinating conversation that they had earlier about whether this is a good and bad thing. And Michael Judith had some incredible insights that just really got me to thinking. It's going to get you to thinking, too. So this is The Right Side. I'm your host, Armstrong Williams. Yes, we're at the convention. Probably by the time you hear this show, the convention may or may not be over, but still, it's an evergreen. I'm Armstrong Williams. We'll be back.
For more information on the Armstrong-Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong-Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
High Point University has experienced unprecedented growth during the worst economic disruption in decades. This growth is driven by a university that focuses on holistic education, on experiential learning, and on values-based living. At High Point University, every student receives an extraordinary education in an inspiring environment with caring people. See what makes High Point University extraordinary at highpoint.edu.
Anderson Brothers Bank, a family-owned and operated establishment that blends traditional personal service, local market awareness, and advanced technology to meet the financial needs of its customers. Visit abbank.com or call 843-464-6271 to see how they can assist you with your banking needs. Anderson Brothers Bank, celebrating 75 years of community banking, the way it should be. Stability right in your backyard since 1933. Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Life is full of unexpected changes. Everyone has potential to do wrong. And when they choose to do it, contact the Bucksell Group for your private investigation needs. TheBucksellGroup.com or by phone at 202-243-9746. Whether there's an instance of a cheating spouse, child custody, process service, or security, don't continue suspecting. Get closure so that you can move on with your life. Visit TheBucksellGroup.com now or call 202-243-9746. If you think it's happening, it probably is.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
Welcome back to The Right Side with your host, Armstrong Williams. I promised you Logan Delany when we return. But let me get Michael Judith to set up the conversation. You felt Apple's big reward by the courts could sort of be its Achilles heel.
Yeah, I do, actually. First of all, the fact that they even have to fight innovation in court is the wrong place to innovate. I don't think the courts, and as we all know, there's a big debate in this country right now about patents and what should and could be properly patented. But more importantly, the fact that they have to fight and prove to the world that they might own a rectangle box, or in this particular case, they're saying they were stolen from. The first thing they did after this was they said, okay, there's 8 different devices that shouldn't be in the United States. Whether or not it's applicable that those devices apply is a whole other bailiwick. But more importantly, what they've done in the Android market now has taken everything to the next generation. And so it doesn't even apply anymore to what this whole court case was about, because technology is moving so quickly today. One of the most fascinating things about this, too, is Apple has now told the world, basically, hey, other people's products that are cheaper and in a lot of cases look a lot nicer and you can operate cheaper, they've told the world that they're a better product, or they're, at least, if nothing else, the same product.
But, Michael, won't people buy American? I mean, is that going to, especially Americans? Aren't we going to buy American? Even though American is more expensive than a Samsung knockoff?
Oh, I'm so glad you said that, Logan, because that's exactly what Google's positioned themselves to do. Google's not only an American company, they own the Android operating system, okay? And on top of it, their new devices are being manufactured in the United States, not imported to the United States.
Well, what about the components in the Google system? Are they being manufactured here, or are they being manufactured elsewhere?
The whole ecosystem, ultimately, yes, we need to move the ecosystem back to the United States. And actually, one of the fascinating things, I don't know if it's changed, but not too long ago I had read an interesting article, or actually I was listening to one of the chief executives out of Intel. Mm-hmm. And I found this to be absolutely fascinating information when he said this. And I'm paraphrasing here, it's like dated 6 or 8 months. And again, technology moves so quickly. But Intel, here you've got this global leader in one of the most difficult industries in the world, making chips. I mean, you've got to say, okay, I think the numbers were 75% of their revenues come from outside the United States, and yet 75% of their employment base is in the United States.
Well, I think that's really very interesting, and it shows what technology and how important technology is to the United States. And going back to the other conversation on the number of engineers that we have and how we're training our engineers in science and math, just very critical. Let me go back to the Apple suit once again. We were also talking that the stock price of Apple shot up right after this suit. They won this suit. They're going to get, $1 billion as a result of this suit. It's a huge amount of money. It made it look like Apple was going to knock everybody else out of the smartphone business, at least in the short run. But you said that it's going to create some new innovation that, Samsung or Google or whoever else might be out there is going to come up with version 4.0 and start from there. And they're being forced to accelerate their own development for a new smartphone.
Exactly. In fact, it's already there, and they've already have it in the advanced. I think what they're up to, the Android operating system's got this thing out there now called Jelly Bean. So, yeah, they tweak it. It doesn't look any, this is the same kind of thing. If you remember back in the late 80s, early 90s, Microsoft and Apple went head on, okay? So this is the same type of thing. Apple sued Microsoft for stealing their operating system. It was Windows at the time. It was the original iteration of Windows. Right. Windows. What Apple does best, there's no doubt, they're a quality company and they make technology simple and easy to use. Best on the planet. We're lucky.
Nobody will dispute that.
Yeah. So that's not the problem. But they're a closed system and they want to own the world. And as you said earlier, Americans like to buy America, but also Americans don't like anybody owning the world. And so what Google's doing is they're taking the same approach Microsoft did in the early 90s. They've got an open system. They're giving it out to people. They've got other people writing for it. They're giving people ownership to their creativity. It almost goes back to, it's an interesting similarity to that which happened in the electric age. When the electric age came to be, it was Westinghouse and Edison. Edison owned all the patents. Westinghouse let his people have all the patents. And it's the same type of thing that's going on today.
Well, I find it very interesting because if you look back at the Apple-Microsoft dispute going back 30 years ago, you find that by opening up your software, letting the whole world participate, Microsoft ended up having 95% market share. Apple had a niche 5% market share. So the implication is, if you follow that analogy and you say the future is going to somewhat resemble the past, we could see this being a great initial development by Apple on this iPhone and iPad, and now the world is going to be forced to get to the next level of technology. Their technology will now be open, they're being their competitors, and there'll be a lot more market share that their competitors will have than what they will have.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And in the technology world, you can't forget, this is the most important thing. It's so fast-paced, and what's so important to Apple and why they're doing what they're doing is because they need to stay on top and have that mind share. But you quickly fall from the top. I can give you a list. Lucent Technology, most publicly owned company in America. Mm-hmm. Remember that company?
I remember it well.
You probably. I can tell it hurt.
I remember. It did hurt. It did hurt.
And you know what? I'm not saying that'll happen with Apple, because I think Apple could be the next GE and be around for 100 years. But Lucent Technologies, that's one example. Nokia used to sell more phones in a day than Apple sold in a month.
Right.
And look what they're doing right now.
Well, let me ask you this. In the faith of your convictions, will you take a short on Apple?
Why?
Why not short Apple if you think that Apple in the future is going to start losing market share?
Because you only bother shorting a stock when you know it's going to go down, and it's not ready to go down yet. When it's ready to go down, then you take a short position.
Well, I got to tell you, Apple's got a lot of cash, and you don't bet against a company that's got as much cash on their balance sheet as they do.
Okay, but I'm glad you mentioned that. That's kind of fun. Okay? When Apple had $13 in cash, I'm sorry. They had $13 in cash and only $11 stock price.
Oh, we should have bought it for liquidation value.
Jobs went to Gates. Gates helped them out. Company turned around. But nobody was buying it when they had $13 in cash. It's not about cash. It's about free cash flow. And when it comes to the hedge funds and everything, it's about growth. As soon as the growth stops or pauses, then you get consolidation. If the growth continues, it grows more. If the growth falls off, you get Lucent Technologies.
So this is interesting. Michael, long term, sees some problems with Apple.
Oh, you're
but
putting
he's
words
not.
in my mouth.
But he's not about to short it. He's not about to put some of his money on the table to finance his convictions.
Well, again, and the reason you don't do that, Friday was a good example. I do know people that were positioned well to short on Friday. They had their stops and everything in place. You get a ruling like that that's in the marketplace, and you get a Monday morning open, and all of a sudden you're up $12 and you're underwater. If you've got a big position, if you're holding 50,000 or 100,000 shares, you're hurting. So if you're a hedge fund, that wasn't a fun day. What you do though in a case like this is you watch it, and if it gets weak, then you take out your short because the news is already out. That's what most of the public doesn't understand when they say sell on the news. Well, the news is already out. $1 billion is nothing to Apple. Apple made $8 billion last quarter that's recurring. That's more important than $1 billion in a lawsuit. A lawsuit's non-recurring income. And not to mention, there's appeals. We are talking about the American legal system, and it could be a long time, if ever, Apple sees a penny of that.
This leads us to a discussion that we've had on the air recently about Facebook. Facebook went public a couple of months ago at a price in the high 30s, as I recall. and it's now selling about 20.
It was 38.
38. It's now selling about 20. And a lot of hype. And, at that time, Armstrong said to me, Logan, shouldn't we buy some Facebook? And I said, Armstrong, do the fundamentals. Look at what you're buying. Look at the numbers. How much cash flow is being generated by Facebook? And, when we did the fundamental analysis, we found that you could get a lot better buys by finding other companies that were already out there in the social media space that were selling at much lower price earnings multiples, much cheaper stocks. So why would you want to go into something like Facebook? Because it was being hyped?
Okay, Facebook's a fun one. I'll tell you why. First of all, like you said, there's no question. By every metric out there, everybody was saying that this thing was overpriced. But what they did know, the people that owned it from the beginning, is they had mind share. And mind share plays a big part in the price of a stock. IPO. In fact,
hold that point about Facebook, because that is a big story. Seemingly, they don't care much about money. He wants everybody to feel good in the country. We'll come back with much more with Logan, Delany, and Michael Judith. I'm Armstrong Williams. Stay tuned.
For more information on the Armstrong-Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong-Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
America must change course if we hope to survive and save the American dream for our children and grandchildren. How do we fix Social Security and Medicare? How do we cut government spending? How do we reform health care? How do we simplify the tax code? The Heritage Foundation has a bold plan that tackles these tough problems using common sense solutions that leave partisan politics on the sidelines. Find out how we can save the American dream at savingthedream.org, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Hi, this is Armstrong Williams with an opportunity to own a piece of paradise in Nassau, Bahamas. Spectacular land prices, 8,000 square feet, 20,000 square feet lot, affordable prices, hilltop properties with views of the magnificent sea. Just call 242-677-3120 or 3121 or go to info@rightsidewire.com and leave your information.
Does your school, team, church, or charity need a new fundraiser? Do you need to work out of your home or part-time? Are you a small business that can use an additional revenue stream? Then you need Yellow Llama. Do you need affordable web services or tools to enhance your existing business? Are you a graphic artist who wants to create a revenue stream with your art but not get ripped off? Then go to www.yellowllama.com.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
Welcome back to the Armstrong Williams Show. Thank you so much for joining us. Michael Judith, what do you have to say to that?
Okay, as I had mentioned, it depends on what side of your trade are on. Listen, you've got in today's world, a lot of people fancy themselves to be their own analysts, and so they make their own decisions. If you have a loss, you've got a loss. From the standpoint of the directors and the initial investors in Facebook, they had a very successful IPO. Peter Thiel, I think the numbers are something like he had originally invested $500,000. He's still selling at these low prices, and he's walking away with $1 billion. Very successful IPO. The mutual funds that bought it, thinking they were going to get that pop in price because Facebook had mind share, meaning supposedly they have 1 billion active users, which has always been under question, they didn't get it. So now they're underwater. Get over it, pair it with a gain, take the losses, and move on. We're a capitalistic society. What's the right price for Facebook? The right price is when it stops going down and starts going back up. That's when you buy it.
I tend to agree with you. There is no easy way to make money except doing your homework and knowing what you're doing. People often ask me, how do you make money in the stock market? And my approach is you have to study the stock market. One of the things that I was told as a young man is that you have to understand the companies that you're buying. You have to understand the industries they're in. You have to understand who their competitors are, their markets. You have to understand the cash flows, be able to read the balance sheets, the income statements. And then you have to do your analysis and make the appropriate comparisons. And even with that, if you really want to be successful, you have to know the markets. You have to be in there day in and day out. There is no way that somebody who is a part-timer in the markets can beat somebody who's full-time in there professionally. And anybody who says differently, may have 1 or 2 hits where they've succeeded spectacularly, but they don't do it consistently.
Logan, you make a real good point. And Facebook, similar to the conversation we were having about Apple when I brought up losing technologies, I just bring out some names that people should look and reflect upon, like CompuServe, MySpace, InfoSpace, and even Yahoo's struggling these days, but is working to have a turnaround. So just because it has, just because you have an account with them, and remember, this is an important thing, because in Facebook, if you belong to Facebook, you don't pay for anything. It's all free.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's what everybody was banking on. Everybody's banking on, the saying goes that if it's free, then you're the product. Okay, but how do you monetize the product? Can Facebook monetize that product? And they're having problems doing that. And what Wall Street wants Facebook to prove to them is that they can not only predict how much they're going to monetize, but how they're going to grow that monetization.
Well, let me ask you a philosophical question. And Armstrong brought it up tangentially, and that is that for a company to really do well, it has to have very strong management. It's when you get right down to it, a company's future are the people that manage that company, that run that company, that are the leaders of that company. Now, we're talking here about a 28-year-old kid who is the chairman and CEO of Facebook. He happened to be a classmate of my 28-year-old son when he was in boarding school. And so if I think of somebody at that age as a kid, please understand me. From my perspective, he is a kid. He's the guy calling the shots with very little experience in the business world, with a philosophy about social interconnectedness. He's not concerned about running a well-managed company. He actually hired a very capable chief operating officer in Sandberg to help him run that business. Long term, if the guy who's there calling the shots, who is the controlling shareholder, is not interested in money, can we as shareholders of Facebook end up making money?
Well, let's go back to Apple. Look what happened to Apple when they brought in Scully. He fired Steve Jobs, and it was the best thing that ever happened to Steve Jobs, and Steve Jobs had to come back and save the company. So saying Zuckerberg is the problem is, I think, completely wrong, because anybody in that position, whether you're young or old, works with a team. Mm-hmm. And it's not a one-man show, and especially not when you got an animal like Facebook. Mm-hmm. It's about the people you put around you, and you put around good people. It's about whether or not they can tame the bear, the tiger that mm-hmm. they've caught by the tail. Mm-hmm. When Facebook first came out, there was no shortage of public media explaining to the public that it was overpriced. Facebook might go down to $10 a share or $6 a share. There'll be a price that it's the right price for now. And if they can ever get their hands around monetizing the people that are on their platform, they will be a phenomenal company. But the problem is all the hype around it and all the people that had a successful IPO, are just fine with what has happened so far.
Yeah. This goes back to the issue of technology and how important technology is to the United States. In the old days, we used to make our money by bending metal, by providing simple services. But right now, the way we make money in this country is by using our brains, by coming up with innovation, by coming up with improvements on the products that we have. And a lot of it is being technology-driven, electronics-driven, and yet, in many respects, the driving force that we started off with in this conversation is our educational system up to it? And one of the things I noted in that conversation, and I'm going to throw out some statistics, is that 40 years ago, we had a public education system where we employed a certain number of teachers and we had a certain number of students. The number of students during that 40 years in public schools has grown by 8%. The number of faculty and administrators has grown by 100%. In other words, it's one of the few industries in the world where productivity has gone down, because you would think that by almost doubling the amount per student spent in terms of adult time, you would think that the performance of our students would significantly improve. It has not improved. It's been steady, the same. Some people would argue that it's less. 40 years ago, we were one of the top nations in science and math. Today, we're somewhere in the middle. We're number 20 or 30, depending on how you rank the nations. Has the educational establishment just totally missed the productivity revolution, the technology revolution? Obviously we can't educate scientists and engineers the way we did 50 years ago. We have to find a new way. You mentioned some things earlier about video games as a way of teaching kids a love for science and math and technology. Do you think the educational establishment is up to accepting these kind of ideas?
Well, it's interesting. You bring up a number of things. Literally 2 weekends or 3 weekends ago, Central Florida hosted what was called Startup Weekend Education. These are programs that are being funded by people like Google and Microsoft and the Kauffman Foundation all over the country on a regular basis. This particular one was focused on education, where entrepreneurs would come together on a Friday night and work through till Sunday night, trying to create companies around innovating the educational system. That's what we worked on. I was fortunate enough to be asked to be a mentor. It's fun to work with that kind of energy and to be around those kind of people and everything. One of the things that's really clear, and in this particular case, at the end of it, 6 companies were supported, funded, and given some office space by the university as well as the county to move forward. And 2 of the companies actually had like games and ways to help tutor kids with their cell phones actually active.
Interesting.
But to your point, technology is changing so fast. My understanding, I'm not an administrator, I've never been in the school system, I just had kids there. But I see a little bit how it works. If you've ever been to school, you're smart about it. If you've had kids that gone through schools, you qualify as an expert. So I'm going to claim expert here. And you see the school systems, they have a book they have to order from. If it's not in the book, they can't order it. So by the time it gets in the book, in today's world, in today's technologies, it's ancient. It's history. And plus, if a company has something embedded in there and they're getting a nice margin out of it and everything, the last thing they want is to change that system. But as you mentioned, we're in a new technology, we're on a technology revolution. And how we communicate and how we create schools in the future, it'll be such a combination of the online experience, as well as I don't think you should ever, this is opinion, that you should ever do away with that personal aspect of the educational system as well. But here we are in an environment, if you're in college, you can take an economics course and everybody can listen to Ben Bernanke speak at the exact same time and talk about economics.
Yeah, but isn't a lot of education more about the interaction? I mean, you can't have 10,000 people interact with it.
Exactly. That's why you
in real time.
Yeah, and you need a proctor and you need that mentor. The colleges that my kid went to, both my children went to, had an 8-to-1 ratio when they were graduating.
But you're going to we'll be hearing from Michael, Judith, and others much more on the Armstrong Williams Show. This Armstrong Williams Show, don't go anywhere. We'll be back.
For more information on the Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Anderson Brothers Bank, a family-owned and operated establishment that blends traditional personal service, local market awareness, and advanced technology to meet the financial needs of its customers. Visit abbank.com or call 843-464-6271 to see how they can assist you with your banking needs. Anderson Brothers Bank, celebrating 75 years of community banking, the way it should be. Stability right in your backyard since 1933.
High Point University has experienced unprecedented growth during the worst economic disruption in decades. This growth is driven by a university that focuses on holistic education, on experiential learning, and on values-based living. At High Point University, every student receives an extraordinary education in an inspiring environment with caring people. See what makes High Point University extraordinary at highpoint.edu.
Whether it's their impact on prison guards, law enforcement officials, business executives, employees, or marriage and relationships, Lored is dedicated to changing the individual and institutions around the globe. Lored's diverse network and training courses can help provide you with the tools you need to both wisely and confidently lead, manage, and supervise yourself as well as others. Lored Business Network, a proven system for achieving success in your business and life. Please visit their website and begin this life-lasting journey with Lored today. www.lored.org.
To travelers along the road of life who have fallen asleep at the wheel, to the many who woke up in time to avert disaster and get back on the righteous path. For the ones who crashed and survived and now adhere vigilantly to a virtuous and righteous path. Finally, Armstrong Williams' much-anticipated new book, Reawakening Virtues, gives his insights into these daily challenges and much more. Reawakening Virtues is available in bookstores and at Amazon.com.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
Welcome back to the broadcast. We're going to talk a little convention talk here. Not convention talk. This is post-convention. The convention is over. Joseph Watkins, who used to work in the Bush White House, is here joining us. Joe, you followed conventions. Now that this convention is over, what are your thoughts on this convention? Do we really need conventions for 4 or 5 days? Well, should it be convinced? Did the storm do us a favor and tell us something that we already know?
Well, the only real reason for a convention these days is to give you the boost that you want out of a convention. I mean, hopefully it's a several point boost, and candidates that leave their convention with a 7 or 8 point boost to have a chance to win. Sadly, because of the distractions, I think it may be hard to get that same boost.
Where does the boost come from?
The boost comes from the base getting energized, and it also comes from independents, for people who haven't made up their mind yet after hearing the case for this nominee, saying, you know what, I think I've decided that I want this guy to be my president. And so that's where the boost comes from. You've got to excite folks, and you've got to have 4 days. And so just not having 4 full days is a real distraction and really impacts, the ability to get that boost that you need. I mean, clearly the Democrats will have it in their convention.
Tell us what we know about Romney and Ryan now that we did not know before the convention. Make the case on why the American people should take a different look at Romney and Ryan ticket.
I think the addition of Paul Ryan to the ticket adds lots of credibility, especially when it comes to fiscal matters, the economy, the deficit, the debt, which is growing by the day. It means that Mitt Romney is very, very serious about addressing these issues and about doing it with somebody who has a proven track record of knowing how to balance budgets and reduce deficits and to cut spending. So the addition of Paul Ryan to the ticket means that Mitt Romney is absolutely serious about job one, which is getting the economy back in order.
Do you think people really know what Mr. Romney believes? Do you think he has the conviction? Do you think he can inspire the base? I mean, listen, even during the convention, much of it did not get out. Even the Paul Ryan and supporters, which Romney was certain that he would receive, they protested. They had to get a handle on it. It seems as though the base still does not, he just doesn't give them that umph. Why? And it reflects more of him than the party.
I think that the challenge will be to energize the base going forward, even for Mitt Romney. And, of course, he's got to continue to work forever on those undecideds. The only upside for Mitt Romney is the fact that President Obama will probably experience an enthusiasm gap this time. There are lots of people, if you asked them who they'd vote for, who are Democrats, would say that they would vote for the president. The question becomes is whether or not they're enthusiastic about doing so and whether or not they'll stand in the rain on Election Day or go to the polls in the same numbers they did in 2008. He had 100% turnout in some precincts in 2008, which was just unheard of, and I doubt he'll get that this time with the unemployment rate being over 8% and so many of the folks that would otherwise vote for him not having work.
Have you been satisfied? What is it that Romney and the future Republican Party, what will they need to do to attract more of a diversified vote?
I think to attract a more diverse vote, you have to let folks know where you stand and what you hope to do, and in a concrete way tell them this is exactly how we plan to put people back to work. And I think to the degree that you can do that you can show them how you're going to put them back to work and energize them by letting them know that you have a plan that can work, that you won't get distracted once you're elected, will have everything to do with energizing and also attracting new people to the party. The party going forward has to do a better job of attracting a more diverse group of Americans.
We can understand the argument of why they're not more delegates because many American blacks are just not Republicans. But what about the policy positions? What about the platform? There are areas where they could have diversity. I just don't understand that.
Well, you're absolutely right, Armstrong, that in a perfect world, given the platform positions of the Republican Party, many African Americans ought to be joining with the Republican Party. It's just right now an overwhelming challenge to try to recruit African Americans to the Republican Party while there's an African American in the White House. And for many African Americans, although they may not agree with this president on some policy matters, clearly it's a proud moment for many African Americans, and that's why they will stick with the Democratic Party. But from a policy standpoint, from the standpoint of
which is more important to them, the fact that he's African American or the fact that he's a Democrat?
I think the fact that he is an African American who has won is important. African Americans are proud when African Americans get high office. They're proud of Condoleezza Rice. She's a Republican. They're proud of Colin Powell. He's a Republican. And, of course, they're proud of Barack Obama, who is a Democrat.
And Justice Clarence Thomas.
And Justice Clarence Thomas, who is a good friend of both of ours.
Oh, please, don't leave him out of the equation.
Absolutely.
But still, Logan, this is our after the convention coverage, everything is over. What are your observations?
I think with the economy still down, with unemployment still up, the number one factor in everybody's mind is how are we going to turn this economy around? There's a fiscal cliff that has to be dealt with. That fiscal cliff, if it occurs, And it almost certainly looks like, well, there's a high likelihood that fiscal cliff will occur with a reduction in federal spending, an increase in taxes, not just income taxes, but new Medicare taxes and estate taxes. If that occurs, the CBO is predicting a 4% drop in the economy. That will be devastating to this country. It means over 9% unemployment. These are not my statistics. These are the CBO's statistics. Now, that's got to be frightening if you're on the edge. If you don't have an axe to grind, you're going to look at this is the economy, and then you're going to look at two different resumes. You're going to look at one resume of a successful businessman who he started out in school. He was successful in school. He went as a consultant. He was successful as a consultant. He went into the private equity business. He was successful in that. He went to the Olympics to take over a failing Olympic program, and he was successful in that. And he was successful as a governor. That's one of your candidates. The other candidate that you have basically is a great speaker. He's inspirational. If he were running to be the pastor of your church and you wanted to have a really great time every Sunday, man, he would be at the top of the list. But is somebody with his record with failure on the economy over the last 4 years, is that somebody who you want? Oh, this guy, by the way, he's never balanced the budget. Okay? Not only has he never balanced the budget, he's never hired somebody with his own money. He's only hired people with your money. This is the taxpayers' money. Okay. And when he hired them, he was not able to make the economy successful. So when you look at those two resumes, if you're on the fence, you have to say, I want to go with the guy that's been successful, not the guy that's been a loser.
Joe, you're speechless?
I think he made so many good points. I think that clearly the two resumes are very different, and what Mitt Romney offers is a chance to put Americans, no matter what they look like, back to work. He's certainly got the experience from his private equity days at Bain Capital, and he's certainly got the experience as somebody who you've just heard turned around the Olympics, and then who served as a successful governor of Massachusetts. And clearly at a time when unemployment has for over 42 months been at over 8%, I think Americans of every stripe are looking for somebody who can change that, who can change the course of where we're headed and put people back to work. Lower taxes, lower corporate taxes, decrease our national debt, cut spending in a smart way, not in a mean, hurtful way, but in a smart way to balance our budget. And clearly, this nominee has all those characteristics.
So, if you had to make a prediction, in the last comments from you, what are the strengths that President Obama has going into November, and what is Romney's strength?
President Obama has electoral college strength. He has an electoral college advantage because of the many large states that are already in the D column. And the big challenge for Mitt Romney will be to have a great turnout and to really challenge and win in all those states that are swing states right now. We're talking about those important states like Ohio and North Carolina and Virginia, and the list just goes on and on and on. Pennsylvania would be one. And the degree to which Mitt Romney is able to wage a strong and winning campaign in most of those swing states will really tell the picture in November.
Joe Watkins, what are you doing now?
Right now, I was the chairman of a political action committee for school choice, but just got appointed by the Secretary of Education of Pennsylvania to head up the Chester Upland School District as the chief recovery officer. So it's a chance for me to make a difference in the lives of kids that have been stuck in a classically underperforming school district, and to change it, to put them on a sound financial footing, as well as on a sound fiscal educational path.
Well, look, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us. I know you have to go
Always
and do
great to
something
be with
else.
you,
It's
brother
always a pleasure
Armstrong.
talking to you. You're always fair and insightful. I want to thank Michael, Judith, and Logan, Delany for joining us. What a provocative show today. I'm Armstrong Williams. That's it, folks. And boy, am I happy. You're surprised to hear me say that. It's the truth. Something you rarely hear at these conventions. Take care after the convention. Well, it's over. It's something you rarely hear at these conventions. So anyhow, thank you all so much for joining us. All the best.
High Point University has experienced unprecedented growth during the worst economic disruption in decades. This growth is driven by a university that focuses on holistic education, on experiential learning, and on values-based living. At High Point University, every student receives an extraordinary education in an inspiring environment with caring people. See what makes High Point University extraordinary at highpoint.edu.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org. Anderson Brothers Bank, a family-owned and operated establishment that blends traditional personal service, local market awareness, and advanced technology to meet the financial needs of its customers. Visit abbank.com or call 843-464-6271 to see how they can assist you with your banking needs. Anderson Brothers Bank, celebrating 75 years of community banking, the way it should be. Stability right in your backyard since 1933.
Life is full of unexpected changes. Everyone has potential to do wrong. And when they choose to do it, contact the Bucksell Group for your private investigation needs. TheBucksellGroup.com or by phone at 202-243-9746. Whether there's an instance of a cheating spouse, child custody, process service, or security, don't continue suspecting. Get closure so that you can move on with your life. Visit TheBucksellGroup.com now or call 202-243-9746. If you think it's happening, it probably is.
America must change course if we hope to survive and save the American dream for our children and grandchildren. How do we fix Social Security and Medicare? How do we cut government spending? How do we reform health care? How do we simplify the tax code? The Heritage Foundation has a bold plan that tackles these tough problems using common sense solutions that leave partisan politics on the sidelines. Find out how we can save the American dream at savingthedream.org, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Does your school, team, church, or charity need a new fundraiser? Do you need to work out of your home or part-time? Are you a small business that can use an additional revenue stream? Then you need Yellow Llama. Do you need affordable web services or tools to enhance your existing business? Are you a graphic artist who wants to create a revenue stream with your art but not get ripped off? Then go to www.yellowllama.com.
The sweet potato pie. Even the keenest taste buds will tell you the best food on the planet. Large enough to serve you and small enough to know you. So get to Henry's at 5431 Indian Head Highway, Oxon Hill, Maryland, or give us a call at 301-749-6856.